do some jelly prints using the jelly plates that I have here. And these are the small versions, they're only like 5 by 5 inches. So to kind of get yourself prepared, you have to take your jelly plate and put it on some scrap paper. And it's just kind of like a flimsy little piece of jelly. They are clear, and they do get kind of messy. So if there's some like dry paint on there, you can wipe that off. It's totally fine. And it's all about layering process. So the single jelly plate or single jelly print is typically not where you would stop. You want to do layered effects on it. And so I have a variety of different things here to help with the layering process and stamps. I'm just going to use like some of this fuzzy yarn to kind of do a technique. And then I'm going to use some of the texture plates as well. So first thing is just to kind of get some color on your plate. So I'm going to start with some warm color tones. And I'm going to get some on there. And I'm going to take one of the layers and we're going to roll this around to get equal coverage. And this paint is kind of watery, so it may or may not do a really decent print, but it's kind of creating some bubbles, which might end up looking pretty neat in the end. So from this, you can kind of see where these bubbles are being created. So I could typically just go ahead and print this and it's going to create something kind of interesting. But I wanted to show you what you can also do. So I just have like some wooden sticks and the backside of the paintbrush, so I can actually draw shapes or designs in the paint. And then I'm going to take some scrap paper. And I'm just going to lay this up on the jelly print, or the jelly plate, and give it some smoothing out. And then peel, and then you can see that's my first layer. And you can see where those bubbles kind of created those different areas of color. So with that, I'm just going to do wet paper towel, kind of wipe off some of the extra paint in between colors. And let's do with some green. So you don't need a lot of paint. A little paint goes a long way with the jelly prints. So just thicker paint definitely works better. So equal coverage on there. And then I just have some rubber stamps, some plain rubber stamps. And I can actually print these in different areas of the plate. And even take my paintbrush and kind of repeat these shapes outward and create almost like an echo. And this is probably one of my favorite techniques, is just drawing on the plate the designs you want to use. Some scrap paper and push this one out, peel it off, and there is some print, so you can kind of see the stamp. In different areas where the paint kind of squishes around, it's going to do different effects. But you definitely have this really cool drawing element to those as well. You don't technically have to wipe off the jelly each time, especially if you're using colors in the same family. But I'm just going to use it for the sake of the demo.
That was way too much paint. Alright, so I'm going to attempt to put this red layer on top of the yellow layer that I did previously. Let's do some of this fuzzy string. Lay some of that out there. I don't want to touch the paint very much, so we're just gonna pat that down. And actually, that's kind of creating some really cool lines as well. So there's not really a right or wrong way to do the jelly print. Everything's gonna do something a little different. Okay, so let's go ahead and peel that off. And to add to good measure, we're going to take this stamp, which kind of looks like some rough lines anyway, and we're just going to add some of that on top. Oh geez, there we go. Alright, so taking our yellow layer from before, and I don't want to actually I'm going to do this in sections, so I'm going to print this side first. And then we're going to print this upper portion up here. That way we have kind of like this speckled look. Yeah. And then we can do something in these corners too to help with the layers. But you can kind of see where the layered effect is coming through because I have the yellow underneath showing through the red layer. And as long as you kind of do this in different sections, you're going to have some really cool places on your paper. We're just going to go right in with some orange. Just add that on top. And it might even kind of mix around with the red, which would be kind of neat. Create more like a red-orange. I know you guys haven't seen this, but in between, I'm taking the brayer, just kind of cleaning it off on this paper towel. That way you don't have to worry about using all those other colors. All right, so let's see. What shall we do? Well, we've got this star, so we're gonna do a stamp star. And that turned out pretty cool. And we'll do some more of these little lines here. So fun to paint. Then one thing you don't want to do is gouge. You don't want to like gouge the jelly plate, because then it's not going to have like that smooth surface that is so essential for creating the different designs and a clean print. So you just want to make sure that whatever you do, you don't dig into the jelly itself. Okay, so let's see. I kind of want this one to be by itself, so we're going to do this paper, and we'll do it down in this bottom corner. Okay. Oh yeah, so first layer, we kind of got some of our red residue, which is pretty neat still. Okay, and I think I'm going to wipe this off so we can do another layer on the green. Thinking some purple or black. Black might be kind of cool because we did those skulls earlier. Okay. So this is going to be really important for kind of thinking about your color theory, the colors you're putting together, how the colors are going to mix, the interactions that they're going to have from one to another. Actually, now that I think about it, we're going to do yellow on top of the green because I want those skulls to stay the way they are. And we're just going to kind of add something into the background of those. And again, this yellow is so runny. But it did something cool in that first one, so I'm hoping it kind of does the same thing on this one. And we'll just do some real quick kind of designs. And create something like that, so that when we put this together right over top of what we had before, we get this really neat, oh, I like that a lot. So we have that yellow right over top of the green, and it's coming through in some areas, and the design that we drew is leaving some areas white, so we have some really cool highlight areas. So that one I think is done. And the only other thing that I have not done is the texture plate. So I will do that with our red and yellow print, and let's see, what shall we do with that? Let's do some black, and we're just going to do a little bit. Okay. A little bit of black. And we will do one of our texture plates. Alright, so I've got some that kind of look like leaves. I actually really like this one that's kind of like sun rays. So I want to try to find the side that has like the bumpy edge. Some are smoother and some are just a little bit rougher. So I'm going to use the rougher side, and we're just going to print that on there like so. You can kind of see the design already starting to come through. And in these sections that we have open, that's where we're going to put this. Okay, so first corner. That looks pretty cool. And then we'll do the second corner over here. Let's see, how do I want to do this? We'll do this action. Okay. Just make sure you rub each of the surfaces, that way it transfers. Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, you can kind of see like where that ghost image was from the previous print. So we can almost kind of just with this extra ink that's on here, create what's known as like ghost prints, which is pretty snazzy. And then you're just kind of like utilizing as much paint as you possibly can. And in the end, I feel like that is a pretty good finished print. So, what do we do with this? How can we take this and like increase it or make it something different? There is a technique that I've used before. It's very similar to a tracing method. Well, it is a tracing method, I should say, but it's using transparency. So I'm actually going to do this with this piece here. I have an image that I've printed out of Star-Lord, and I'm actually going to use a piece of transparency and put it over top of it, trace the image, and then I will be able to take that piece of transparency and kind of layer it on top of my print so that I have this really cool kind of like dimensional mixed media artwork. So you can see I've kind of already drawn most of the image, so I'm just going to take the transparency and you place it right over top of your image, and I'm just using a regular Sharpie, and this can be done in any color that you want. It doesn't have to be black necessarily, but I think the black at least gives you a starting point to help add other colors within that area or around what you want to do. So I'm just going to quickly kind of finish off tracing the image here, and you're just going to kind of, use whatever details are there. You can simplify the image a little bit if you want. You can make it more detailed if you really want as well, but it is going to represent more of like a minimalist style because it's not going to be able to have like shadows it's not going to be able to have like midtones or value. It's going to be more so like a kind of pop style version, so a pop art style version of the image, and more simplified. And it kind of matches our technique and our style of our prints that are more minimalistic and abstract. And so now that I kind of have this starting point, I can take this image and I can start adding some color, which I feel like I'm going to do a little bit. But for the most part, I can just go in and kind of make these lines a little darker. Now, the only disadvantage to having the black Sharpie is my print also has black on there. So when I layer them together, there is going to be kind of like some areas that are going to be lost. So what I could do in that case is I could even do another layer on top of this and make that a white layer, which I may end up doing because I really do like the red and the yellow, but the black is just kind of, it's commanding too much of a presence. So I think I might go back in and add a final kind of like white layer. If everything had kind of been like this up here, that would have been really nice. But because I got some areas that are super dark, my Sharpie is not going to actually show up on this background. So we're going to kind of add in that last layer. I'll go in with some Sharpie and make my lines of my drawing a little bit darker, and then you'll be able to see what the end result is kind of aimed at looking like. So here's the update on what has happened. I went over my lines a little bit more, made them thicker, made them darker, and now I'm adding some of this fancy gold glitter to different areas of the image to help make it kind of stand out a little bit more and kind of jump off of the page. And then I added the white layer, and I love it. I think it adds some really nice differentiation in between the shades, and it's going to make the image pop a little bit more instead of it being as dark as it was. So after I get some of this glitter stuff on there, which we have a ton of different colors in, but I think I'm only just going to stick with the gold. I'm going to put it all together, kind of adhere it together. It's kind of an interesting, the way that you have to put them together. I am definitely going to cut this out of the transparency. And The best way to kind of put them together is just to adhere with tape. I know that doesn't sound as kind of like good in the end, but what I have found is that tape generally just works the best because you can maneuver it around and you can just tape it to the page. So this can be like that sketchbook page, and then you can just tape the transparency on there once everything is dry. So kind of put some of the gold down here. My Star-Lord is looking fabulous with his glitter elements. Okay. Grab some scissors and we'll cut him out. I was trying to play around with placement where I actually wanted him to go, but I have yet to decide a final location. And hopefully now that the glitter is on there, we can figure something out. Okay. So this is definitely still wet in different areas. But if we look at it, see, I kind of like this right there because his face is like mainly on the red and he's just got like the black that's around his jacket and his hair. So I really like that, and that's probably what I'll end up going with. And then I'll just trim the rest of this off. I have not tried to glue the transparency on there. Mainly whenever I'm doing it, I just tape it on, but for the sake of kind of figuring things out, I might try to glue it once the glitter paint is dry. But yeah, that is essentially the end result. You're gonna have this really cool kind of like drawn element image on the transparency with all of the jelly print layers behind it. And this is gonna be like a really, really neat final artwork. And that's the idea.